Um, Good evening. Welcome to this episode where we go behind the scenes of industries shaping the world today. Today, we are diving into a topic that affects everything from the chocolate you buy to the car you drive, supply chains. Post COVID, post war, and now deep in the AI era, supply chains have moved from being back end operations to boardroom level strategy. And joining us to break it all down was someone who's right at the center of it, Mr. Partha, currently leading supply chain for Hershey's North America and Canada supply chain, and now strategic advisor with Whitespaces Consulting. With decades of experience across continents, Mr. Partha brings not just global perspective, but real actionable insight. So, good evening, sir. How are you doing today?
Anusha, great to be with you today. Yeah, I'm doing really good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, could you give a brief introduction to our audience today?
Yeah, thanks, Anusha. So, as you already mentioned, I'm currently working as a head of supply chain for North America. Especially my responsibility is the Canada supply chain. Canada supply chain for Hershey is almost like $1 billion operation, and we actually have a multiple source location where we get the product from different part of North America. So my role is to ensure that whatever is needed for the Canadian supply chain get ensure starting from the sourcing till the product gets delivered to the customer. The responsibility is entirely supply chain. That we call it an end-to-end supply chain. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm doing today.
Okay, thank you so much. That's amazing. So, how did you get into this? What's your journey? What's your experience so far? What would you characterize it?
Yeah, so I actually started my career actually as a production person in the line, like working in a shift, making sure that your production is getting produced as per the plan, as per the quality, and then from there I moved into quality as then head of a quality of a plant, then into the manufacturing, from manufacturing to the factory director kind of a role. I used to work for PepsiCo earlier in the Frito-Lay business, which is the chips business in India. In fact, we actually established that business for almost like a very high CAGR of almost 25%. It was an incredible journey, which is making sure what you need, you are actually delivering. And the demand was just skyrocketing almost every day.
Right.
So putting up a new line and actually rolling out exactly a new operation. In Calcutta, we put up at that point of time the largest manufacturing plant for Frito-Lay.
Right.
And I was then moved to a company called Wrigley Mars. You must be knowing, which is for India. I moved as a supply chain director for Wrigley Mars. Post that, I moved to Mondelēz, which is Cadbury's,
Right.
and then from there to Hershey. I was for almost 5 years. I was supply chain director for India for Hershey, and then at that point of time, my boss told, "Would you like to come to North America and do the same job for this operation?" I was very
Right.
excited. It's the largest operation, for that's the biggest part of the company operation. And really, there's an opportunity to work with a different cultural environment, different set of people. So it was a very exciting thing for me. So that's the way I landed up over here. And it's kind of a very, very interesting journey so far.
Okay. Okay. So, given the body of work you have with like numerous organizations, what changes are you noticing in global supply chain?
That's a very interesting question, like if I just break into the decades, pre-1980s, the supply chain was actually manufacturing. These are very, very localized and regional kind of manufacturing. And we call it as a push supply chain, where a lot of product will be produced and handed over to the, to the sales team to sell them.
Right.
Something gets sold, something get wasted. So that was the beginning. Then come the era of 1980s to 90s. The new thing on again, manufacturing was driving the supply chain that point of time. We something call it a TPS or the Toyota Production System. Or the TPM or the lean manufacturing. It all started. Basic objective is to make sure you're reducing the cost, making the product very, very interesting. I mean, it's good for the business. So a lot of new concept which is called like just in time or the EDI or ERP system just
Right.
started getting in. That was the era of 1980s to 90s. Then come 2000. 2000 is a very interesting phase, which is a globalization started happening.
Right.
And and FTA happened, the global, and at that point of time, what has happened was China become emerged as the largest manufacturing base. Most of the supply chain started moving to China. So, and at the same time, 3PL, like third party operation, where outsourcing of the part of the supply chain operation, it's started becoming popular. Then
Right.
came 2010, 10 decade where you can see the e-commerce taking up, and complete face of supply chain changed. Very, very strong demand driven supply chain started getting in, and needs very high level of agility. So a lot of systems started getting into the process. We call
Hmm.
it IoT, like Internet of Things, like
Hmm.
where you can use the sensors and every aspect of your operation to make sure you give the most efficient production. And post 2020 is a very different era. I think the biggest kind of change happened with the COVID-19, that.
Right.
So
Right.
supply chain was a complete disrupted. So and a lot of different concept. We are offshoring product. It started changing to the near shoring, where you should be closer to the business,
Hmm.
so that you actually minimize those kind of disruption. That is one. Then other than that, it is happening like AI has become very big, like which is post 22, like where AI and machine learning taking over the entire supply chain. So today, the demand is not only driven through the your planning process. It also takes into account how the market is moving,
Right.
how the marketing is doing, how the advertisement is doing, how the competition is doing. So everything is getting into place. And another change which is coming, which is called circular economy, where you get to see that lot of kind of emphasis is going into kind of EHS practices, or environment health sustainability, because that's no longer just a good thing to do. It has become something more than that, which is at this point of time like is a business necessity. Other than that, consumer is not going to accept your product. So I will say there's a kind of a almost like a 180-degree kind of a shift in supply chain has happened. And today, in the era of quick commerce and all, supply chain is absolutely agile, and every day it is evolving. So I'll say we are just in the tip of the iceberg. There's many more miles to cover in this field. Yeah.
So you spoke about all these changes and people have evolving, the supply chain is evolving. So what do you think are the additional capabilities like one needs to be required to be relevant in the marketplace in today's, especially there's such a volatile environment right now?
That's a great question. I'll say when we started our career, we did someone like an engineering or some other technical stream, and then get into the manufacturing. And over the years, over the rank, you grow and become a supply chain head. But today is like there's no time for the learning curve, so you have to exactly start at where it is. So the biggest capabilities which is needed is if you ask me is a digital fluency. For any of the new joiners is need to have very high level of digital fluency. Otherwise you will be actually you are not going to be there in the game, right?
Hmm.
There are a lot of data. The entire domain is dominated by different kind of data. So
Right.
understanding a data, Power BI, different advanced kind of Excel, that kind of knowledge is very, very important. Next would be like risk and scenario planning understanding. Like every time there is some kind of risk, how you are planning different scenario, because you never know. In the era of the
Exactly.
post-COVID, everything is changing, so you need to be prepared for that.
Hmm.
Then they also need to have a lot of idea about the sustainability. Like ESG is
ESG.
becoming very different. Like at different part of the business, there are a lot of carbon emission happening. So that understanding of that calculation has to be there.
Hmm.
And cross-functional agility is a very important thing. It's not just about your own function. You need to know, because if a supply chain is good, it doesn't mean anything. It's a business. So newcomers need to understand the complete end-to-end business, like each aspect of the business, how it is impacting. Like there is a big sales pitch can happen, which can change your demand. If the marketing comes with a new advertisement, your demand is going to change. So you need to prepare before time. So I will say it is just when we come to the industry with a degree, that's fine. But today the learning has become enormous, and that learning agility has to continue. That's only going to make a newcomer successful into this field now for the talents. Yeah.
So you spoke about AI coming in, you spoke about all these changes. So in this entire sphere, what is talent and culture? Like where does it fit into the scheme of things?
See, first of all, the mindset change is very important because there is no status quo today. Like the first,
Hmm.
one needs to have a very open mindset. Things are changing, and how we are taking it up. System thinking, as I'm saying, that's a kind of a huge shift. System thinking is like instead of looking one function, it's the entire system. So that's a culture in an organization. You have to ensure that the people in the entire value chain is focused towards that kind of understanding, and they think in a bigger picture of it, entire business, not just their functions. And learning and curiosity, that's a kind of a cultural thing. I'll say at the same time, the mindset thing. People needs to have the curiosity, like something new coming in the picture today. Are we going to get into understanding that? Are we are the first mover in taking the understanding of that? That's another thing which is important. And collaboration and empathy, because that's a cultural element of it. One needs to collaborate. It's not, again, I am doing my job, but I don't know what is happening next. And empathy is because it's like a chain, right? We should also always make sure the chain is moving, not an individual link. And data driven decision making, which is the culture part of it, I will say, for the companies. Data is available, and how you're using that data, the decision making, are we using those data? And then ownership mindset, that's a cultural element of it. That's very important for each companies needs to make sure that people get that kind of a mindset where complete ownership, that's even, and resilience, because things are changing, continue
Very
to do
fast.
that, do things. So those are very important, actually.
So for new engineers and technicians coming in the supply chain side of it, what advice would you give for them if they're entering into a career in supply chain?
No, as I already told, like, okay, so data science, or the understanding data, so they should come start looking into those kind of, sharpening the saw. That's very important. Like, it's not just a degree, or kind of a training is important. So every day, the new things which are happening, there are multiple books. AI and machine learning is completely disruptive today. How that is working, how this can be utilized in my industry, that kind of understanding and that kind of learning is going to help, and that's really going to put them ahead of the curve. Otherwise, just doing the job, that's great, but bringing that new thing into the place, because it's become flat. It's no longer like individual areas where we are going to work, so it's a flat organization. So working together, learning the other things, so learning agility, I will say those are going to be very, very important, and have the right kind of curiosity to learn new things. That's important for the newcomers.
Okay, okay. So you're venturing into consulting now with Whitespaces, where be part of their advisory board. So what prompted you to do this? Like, why did you feel like, okay, this is something I should be doing?
But I was telling about my background, like, 30 years I spent in India and 5 years in US and the international arena. So I think for a learning perspective, of a 30 years of India, you have enough understanding of the basics of that. And then I'm lucky to top it up with a kind of an advanced supply chain, working with the best mind in the world. So I felt like this kind of experience, I continue to do my job where that there's no problem. I continue to get my salary, things are going to go, and you're going to be the first word. That's all fine. But our country, which is in the most important and most prominent economy today, that need a lot of support, and that support, like people like me, if we just be selfish and just remain in our domain, I don't think we'll do the justice what we have gone from the country. So another interesting fact, if I look at, is in our economy, 40% of the economy gets supported by the MSMEs, like small and medium scale
True, true.
industries. Okay. And when I look back, absolutely don't have a supply chain. Supply chain is exactly there. So business is happening. They're very, very entrepreneur. But if I able to provide him some kind of input on that, they can do really good. And that 40% of the economy gets impacted. I mean, I'm sure we are going to be one of the partner into this Indian growth stories, and going
True.
from the fourth largest to third largest economy. I would be very happy that I'm going to add a part into that. So that's the reason I thought it would be great to be part of a new growing organization like a White Spaces, working with the like-minded people, and be a part of that growth story.
Okay, okay. So what would be a two-line pitch on why companies should work with Whitespaces for especially supply chain related projects?
So I will say, like, you want to learn something, it's a low cost and easy to implement, but having a kind of an enormous impact you are looking at, I think you should reach out to a consultant like a Whitespaces, where we are a team of people. While I can work on the nut and bolts part of it, also there is a kind of a training and development part of it. We have the best kind of talent which is there. So it's not only making implementing thing and making sure training them, making them up to the scale and deliver at their best. So I think that's a unique combination for to reach a company like Whitespaces for those kind of support. So it's going to be beneficial for everyone.
Okay. So you spoke about MSMEs. So I'm assuming you're passionate about working with MSMEs. But any other projects are you looking for from companies that you want to work with?
See, the first and foremost, the companies can be like the projects would be like simply like a AI. I mean, low cost AI and machine learning. Like there's a straight away implementability today, and they are not expensive. They can be done in a very low cost, and which makes you very you can actually put you ahead of the curve. That's a one. Secondly, in a manufacturing operation, we can go and do a kind of a complete study to see which are the areas they're losing, can they be improved. All the data can be captured and find out that low hanging fruit so that you can start getting a quick benefit out of it. Then, as I talked about sustainability is a very important part of it. Just not having understanding, just having a minimal understanding, going to make them very efficient on that. And without sustainability, you cannot move in today's industry. So other than that, there are systems like a lean manufacturing, TPM, or the Toyota production system. Those are the advanced tools which are going to make you efficient. And any kind of efficiency comes in terms of people, cost, quality, and the delivery. So, and of course, the morale of the people. So I can definitely work with those kind of projects, which is be extremely beneficial for the industries.
So India is putting a lot of money in terms of trying to push manufacturing, and you said even supply chain is important. So the Indian government is already doing so much. So do you have any words like, how can we become that big? Like, how can we get on board people and kind of scale the industry? Any words on that?
So I already told government is doing a lot of things. There are websites where you can actually find out where the subsidies. I was talking about AI machine learning.
Yes,
Government gives 50% subsidy there. It's very easy to get, and if someone is doing the real work, there's no problem. So your cost is already coming down to a lot. Then government also provide a lot of subsidies, like buying your equipments, etc. So we can work with the companies, making sure how they are going to get those subsidies so that they can implement your product at a much competitive cost. Apart from that, it also helps to find out the buyers. So that also is opportunity. So in Indian industry, one is what government is already having, but I think only one thing can improve it. Little more awareness. How can be some more energy and resources can be spent of
true.
getting that awareness, which can reach out to the last person in the chain value chain, so that they can utilize this more. So a lot of things are available. Who has the websites? One can go and see that. So we can be a partner on that to help them to really navigate through and find out what is available for them. You know.
Right, right. So, and you actually have an association with the managing partner, Mr. Anjan Vomik. So, do you have any words on any lines on this association of yours?
So very interestingly, when I joined Hershey, Anjan was the first person who interviewed me. So I was actually pitching for the supply chain head role. He was the HR head in the company. So my association started with him. So I have a lot of respect as a professional for him, and we have actually similar kind of guide path. So we worked in India, then we decided to venture outside of India. We moved to US. We worked there. Both of us felt very restless to say that why are we spending our time here? Why not going back to the country? So that is where we remain connected always. And when Anjan came back and talked about starting this, I thought, yes, this is where I should be actually jumping. And that's the way the association continuing, and we keep on meeting, sharing ideas. We are absolutely interested and energized to find out a new avenue to do things. So that's continuing.
Actually, this was really good. I'm so happy that we have you on board. I think you've actually unlocked a lot of insights in terms of where the future is heading and what the need of the hour is. and that even though AI is coming in, talent is needed, and how you're supposed to groom your talent into actually being part of the supply chain, the sphere of supply chain. So thank you so much for joining us today. And this was a very quick podcast. We just wanted a few insights from you, and we've actually got them. I hope that all our viewers kind of gain from this, the engineers, people who are doing supply chain. I hope you get all your insights from here and you can always connect. And thank you so much, Mr. Partha, for coming today and gracing us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be a part of White Spaces and all your podcast. I think this is where I'm getting the kick of informing thing, making things more available for the people. So I'll continue to work in future also. You need any point of time. It's great connecting. Thank you, Anusha.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.